Welcome back. And look who I found wandering around in the parking lot. My buddy, Zorro.
Good to see you, Perry.
How are you,
I
man?
was wondering for sure.
Oh, gosh. We hooked up at the NRB, and this man and his story and his ministry and his work is amazing. And he's a Southern Oregon boy.
Yes. Yes, I've spent all of my formative years in Grants Pass, so all of my great memories and a lot of what I write about in my memoir, Maria's Scarf, 2/3 of the book takes place between Grants Pass, Medford, and Ashland.
Yeah.
And this whole Rogue Valley are all where my dreams started, where I met so many godly people that helped shape my life and help my mother raise 7 children alone, the church. And so, yeah, it's always fun coming back because it's in my blood, you know, Southern Oregon's in my blood and the countryside.
He is here. He's doing a book tour. He's also ministering. We'll get into all that. But his latest book, Maria's Scarf, which is his memoir, this book is fascinating. And I will say this, that if you know somebody that's kind of struggling with their faith or thinking about coming to faith, this would be a great tool. I can't say enough about how you have published this book. Give me the little history on the beginning part of this. This is the inside cover is what?
Yeah, they call these end papers. So I had a vision when I was working on the book. I said, I would love to show all my visions and dreams as a kid. So these are all the things that shows the kid dreaming. In fact, this little orange piece of paper right there is where I wrote out my visions and dreams for myself at 15, and that is on the cover of the book. Then when you flip it here, this is when the dreams and the visions came to life, which is my dream was to become a world-renowned drummer. So these are all the tickets, the passes, and the magazine covers. So I wanted to show, here's the kid dreaming. He found God, trusted God. God helped him fulfill the dream. And then the front cover itself is that goal, those goals that I wrote out, that's the piece of paper there that I wrote out when I was 15. And the font is my own handwriting from when I'm 15. So it's a very original thing. It's just God was all over this book from beginning to end, and Blackstone Publishing, who's from Ashland of all places, they caught the vision and they put in everything that I thought would make it special to communicate this is a God story in a family.
All right, this is about a mother's love.
Yes.
And we have a little bit of a trailer here. Now, it's possible in time your story will become a movie, which would be fascinating, and I pray that that will happen.
Yes.
But I want our viewers and listeners to watch this trailer first, and then we'll come back and talk to Zorro. Take a look.
When I was 7 years old, my mother knelt down beside me, tied her orange silk scarf around my neck, and whispered, "One day, my precious son, you will do something phantasmical with your life." With those words, my fate was sealed. Now, 50 years later, it's time I share my story. A story about the power of a mother's words to transform a child's future. I would go from surviving the rough streets of Compton to living among the elite in Beverly Hills. From dodging eviction notices to traveling around the globe with the world's wealthiest people. Though I would go on to become a world-renowned drummer, my story is really not about drumming. It's about dreaming and overcoming insurmountable obstacles to make those dreams come true. It's a love story between a mother and a son, an immigrant woman who came from Mexico to the United States to make a better life for her children. A single mother who raised 7 children alone in pursuit of the American dream. It's a story about a family's unbreakable bond and their struggle to survive fatherlessness, economic hardship, and racism. It's a story about a quirky, hilarious, and tenacious kid who refuses to give up on his dream. Part sinner, part saint, but all heart in his epic quest for significance. And it's a story about the power of friendship and how those who believe in us help to shape the course of our lives. Now more than ever, we need stories of hope and triumph, stories that bring out the best in humanity and remind us what matters most. Universal stories of love, perseverance, and the power of dreaming big. A story that kneels down beside you and whispers in your ear, one day, brave soul, you will do something phantasmical with your life.
That is absolutely fantastic. And Zorro's in the studio with us live today. The book, first of all, where can they get the book?
Anywhere. It's in bookstores everywhere, on Amazon, wherever books are sold. It's just Maria's Scarf. Just type in Maria's Scarf, and wherever books are sold, you'll find it.
Okay, you're wearing the scarf today.
Yes.
That's your symbol. That's your...
It's my kind of continuous tribute where I honor my mother's legacy, because it was her who wore scarves a lot, and when I was 7, I talked her into letting me wear one of her scarves for my school picture, which is the picture of me on the cover, because I was a budding rock star who wanted to be different. I didn't know it then, but she relented and tied her scarf around my neck, and then she said that I would do something phantasmical. That was her word. You'll do something phantasmical with your life.
Phantasmical.
Yeah, it's like a mixture of fantastic, amazing, and wonderful, you know, and but she sort of spoke it and decreed it or prophesied it over my life, and I believed it. So I wear the scarf in her honor, and I have hundreds of different ones, but it kind of came from her, and she was a very stylish woman from Mexico City, and she had a lot of panache, and so this was my tribute to her.
Okay. A couple basic questions. Where'd Zorro come from?
That came from, well, my mother was Mexican, and so she used to say that I was like the real Zorro. The real Zorro always had a heart for the underdog. You know, he always fought for the commoner. And so I always had that kind of spirit and heart, but I started wearing kind of a Zorro-ish type of hat that we got at the bullfights. But I also wore a Zorro mask when I was less than a perfect kid. When I was living in Compton, I was wearing a Zorro mask, and I would kind of sneak things out of the store, and I thought if I wore the mask, no one would recognize me. And so, anyway, it kind of came from that. She said, you should call yourself Zorro, but spell it with one R, because you're kind of like the real Zorro. So that kind of started in the early 80s, and then it just stuck with me.
Okay. Let's get into drumming a little bit.
Yeah.
How were you drawn to drums?
That's a good question. I think it's the gifts that God gives us. They're already inside us before we're born. And so all you have to do is be around somebody or something that's displaying that gift, and you're drawn to it like a magnet. And so I grew up in the early part of my life in Compton, and then we moved to Grants Pass when I was 10. But anytime I heard rhythm, soul music, anything where I heard drumming, like I was drawn to it and I wanted to play. So I think it was just that magnetic pull that's calling you to your destiny, because it wasn't any other instrument, it was drums. And ironically, my father, who had abandoned me when I was an infant, was also a drummer, and I never spent any time with him in my life, but genes are very strong, right? And then the way that God wires you. So it was like I was called to be a drummer, but it was funny, I never really got to play. I was a junior in high school in Grants Pass at Hidden Valley High School. I had an after-school job as the school janitor. I was the custodian. So when the school bell would ring, I would clean up the toilets, vacuum the library. The last part of the job always had me cleaning the band room.
The band room.
And so at the last part of that, I would sneak on the drums. When no one was there, I was done with my job. I never played before, but there were sticks, and I would just play. And I would just dream about being a drummer. Then one day, the band director caught me in there, and then brought in another guy, and I thought I was getting fired. He goes, kid, he goes, you got a rhythmic gift, man. I need you in all the school bands. So right after that, in my junior year, I joined the stage band, the marching band, the swing choir. But I had been trying to get in the school band program from the 4th grade in Grants Pass, and every year I was turned down. Finally, I'm a janitor, and that's how I get discovered. And then as soon as I start playing the drums, I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm doing. And I was a kid who skipped a lot of school. In my freshman year, I missed 62 days of school. Ooh. In my sophomore year, it went down to 61
you still graduated?
And I still graduated. This is the 70s. But when I got into the band program, my absences went from like 60 to 23, which for me was amazing because I didn't want to miss. But I wasn't skipping school doing anything bad. I was always dreaming. I was raising my chickens. I thought I was going to be the world's greatest chicken farmer. I was in the 4-H club. did the Rogue River Rooster Crow. You know,
Rogue River Rooster. I mean, that is like world famous.
Yes, and I entered that when I was a kid. All before the drums, I thought I was going to be a chicken farmer. Then my St. Bernards came in and killed the chickens, and that was the end of that. Oops. But that's how God led me to drums. But it was through this janitorial position at the school that the band director discovered my talent and immediately put me in all the bands. And after that, I was like, this is what God's called me to do.
That's amazing. At that time, before I take a break, at that time, did you connect the dot that God is leading you to do this?
Yes.
I mean, you had a spiritual sensitivity at that age.
I did. I had it even earlier, and it all happened at Wilderness Trails Camp when I was about 12.
Oh, there you go.
I went to that camp and received the Lord. In fact, you'll love this. In the book itself is a picture of the trail guide from 50 years ago.
There it is.
That was that important to me that I saved it my whole life, because that is where I gave
Chris Smith, we need to get him here.
Chris Smith,
Yeah. His dad started it.
Right, and I met his dad because I once went on KOBI, and they asked me about any memories of the region. I said, yeah, there was this camp that really changed my life. And after that, Jack Smith contacted me, and we became friends as older men. But it was already at that point, I felt like I already knew the Lord, and I felt like this is what God's called me to do. Play these drums, and I didn't know all around the world what I would do with it, but I knew this is where I'm going. And I wrote out the dreams and goals at 15. At the Josephine County Fair, I was working there at the 4-H club, and I wrote out my visions and dreams, and it said that I want to be a professional musician in showbiz. But I was decreeing things without understanding what that was.
This is just fascinating. Let me take a quick break. We got more to talk to Zorro about. The book is entitled Maria's Scarf. There's a picture of it. You may want to get a copy of it wherever books are sold. I understand the audio version is available now?
Yes, you can go on to Audible, the website Audible, and I recorded the whole thing. It's like a 12, 13-hour audiobook, me narrating it. It came out wonderful. Blackstone is the best in the world at audiobooks as well.
Yeah, so you can check that out. All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. So honored to have our good friend Zorro back with us. He is a Southern Oregon boy, world famous drummer. He's written this book called Maria's Scarf. This is an amazing story of his life. It's also an honor to his mother. By the way, Zorro does have a website, ZorroTheDrummer.com. You may want to check that out, ZorroTheDrummer.com. There's a picture of the landing page right there. And his story is everything. This book, like he said, you'll laugh, cry, and have a hoot reading it. But you did this in honor of your mother 20 years from her passing, right?
Yeah, the inspiration to write it was really all of my life. I've been working on it for 15 years, like literally 15 years of writing it. I read over 300 books to study the craft of writing memoir, to really learn how do you tell an amazing... Yeah, wow. Because I had written other books before and that were successful, but they were more motivational books. Writing a memoir is like being a neurosurgeon as opposed to a pediatrician. It's a whole higher level of writing. And so I wanted to study the craft, but I'd actually kept a diary from when I was 10 years old into my 20s. So there are many diary entries in the memoir of my 10-year-old self, 12, 14, 18. So God's been like kind of writing this story my whole life without me being aware of it. But for many years, I'd shared these stories on the road with famous musicians and actors, and they were like, oh man, your life story would make an incredible movie or an incredible book. So I was always encouraged by people as I shared the stories, and I promised my mother before she passed that I would write a book to honor her, to show this woman's faith and how she raised 7 children alone, no fathers in the scene, no help from family. I was literally probably one of the only kids I knew who didn't have, out of 4 possible grandparents, I never had any in my life, no cousins, no uncles or aunts were in my life, 0. It was just me and my 6 siblings and my mother. So that was my everything. That was my family. And but I promised her that I would write a book to honor all that she had to do to take care of these 7 children. She raised us with the faith of the Lord. She took us to church. It was a camp of the Wilderness Trails where I gave my heart to the Lord. but the pastor, his name was Reverend Williamson at Faith Baptist Church. He's the one who bought me the shoes for me and my brother so we could go to the camp, because we didn't even have shoes at that point. He bought the shoes and made a way for us to go to Camp of the Wilderness Trails. So dig this. He is coming to my Josephine County Library book talk tomorrow, and I haven't seen him in like about 50 years. Really? And he's still alive, but I contacted his family because I wanted to honor him. He's mentioned in the book. I just want to show him what I did with my life. He used to let us shower at his house when we were living in Grants Pass in the Jerome Prairie area. We started off living in a car, a 1962 Chevy Nova. Then we had a tent and an 11-foot camper. And we didn't have running water, electricity. He let us shower at his house, all of my siblings and me. So I wanted to know what I did with my life that you made such an impact, because I wouldn't be walking with Christ. I wouldn't be the guy I am. I've spoken everywhere from San Quentin to Hollywood celebrities. I was just at Lenny Kravitz's 60th birthday party he invited me to in Paris, and I was ministering to Denzel Washington's whole family. You know, but none of that would have happened if this man didn't let me have a shower at his house and give me shoes, because that showed me that people loved me and that people cared, even though we were this poor Mexican immigrant family. And I was part of the Big Brother, Big Sister program in Grants Pass. The family that mentored me, their son was a drummer, and that was the first time I actually hit some drums. It was only for like an hour, but I was 12, but it connected me. And their son was a drummer. So many beautiful people in the Rogue Valley loved on us when our life was tough, but that's what formed me with this heart to care.
All right. A couple quick questions before we go on with more stories. You are speaking. Give us your speaking. You're here this week.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so today I am at the Ascend Conference, which is at a church here in Ashland. It's an worship arts conference.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so it's I'm the keynote tonight. It's free.
Okay.
In Ashland, anybody could come to it.
They do a great job.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And then I'm doing a drum master class at 2:15, but then at 6:30 to 8, I'm the keynote and performing, so it's open to the whole city of Ashland or whoever wants to come.
Okay.
Then tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I'm at the Josephine County Library doing a book talk for an hour, a Q&A. Okay. Then I walk across the street to Oregon Books, where I'm signing books at the bookstore. And then Saturday, tomorrow night, 5 o'clock, I'm preaching at River Valley Church, and then I'm doing both Sunday morning services, 9 and 10:30.
So there you go. And by the way, you can go to ZorroTheDrummer.com and keep track of his schedule there as well and get a copy of the book. All right, I got to ask you this question. What's your real name?
My real name is in the book. You'll have to read it.
You want to tell me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's, I always tell people this when they ask me my real name, and only older people get it. I go, my real name is Don Diego de la Vega. And they go, wow, that's really cool. And then those that understand the story, that was Zorro's real name in the TV show. His character, he was Don Diego de la Vega. He was like Batman. He was Bruce Wayne during the day, and then when he put on the cape, he became Batman.
Okay, let's go down one layer below that.
No, my real name was actually Danny Donnelly. Danny Donnelly. My father was Irish, and so and your mother was Mexican. My mother was Mexican.
Wow,
and
what a
so
combination.
this story is the story of Danny Donnelly through his whole life and how he became Zorro. You know, because I'm Danny through the book until the very end when we get towards my career, and then all the highlights of touring with Lenny Kravitz and Bobby Brown and Frankie Valli, New Edition, Earth, Wind and Fire. It's all the people I worked with, but it's the journey to that, and it's all my life is like Forrest Gump. I'm the living Forrest Gump.
There you go. Yeah, that just you never know what you're going to get.
Exactly.
How did you get into professional drumming? What was your break that got you towards Hollywood?
Well, it started when I graduated high school in Eugene, Oregon. We moved there for my senior year. I graduated. I joined a top-notch working cover band that ended up going down to LA to try to get a gig at Disneyland as the house band. Well, they never got the gig, and the band started to fall apart, but that put me back in Southern California, and then I actually didn't know what to do. You know, how am I going to meet young musicians? And I wound up, of all places, I wound up in Beverly Hills. My sister was a model, and she was doing some work there. She had an apartment. She said, why don't you come here and see what you can make happen here? I didn't know what to do, and so I God gave me this idea, and so one day I went to Beverly Hills High School. I had a boom box, a ghetto blaster. I was cranking some Earth, Wind & Fire. I had a hat. I had a Panama Jack hat, wearing a yellow silk shirt and pants. I sat on the lawn, and I thought, I'll just play on the lawn, and if there's any kids here that are musicians, they'll probably go, who's this new kid?
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened. 10 minutes later, 2 kids came up to me. One's name was Kennedy, the other was Lenny. Kennedy ended up becoming Kennedy Gordy, the founder of Motown Records' son.
Oh,
so that Berry Gordy's son.
Oh, my
and
stars.
Lenny was Lenny Kravitz, and they both took a liking to me. They said I was the best drummer they ever heard. Then I pretended to be a student there for the next year and kept going every day to Beverly Hills High, and then that's where it all started.
Really?
Yep.
So, who was your first big band?
Philip Bailey, the lead singer from Earth, Wind & Fire. So in 1983, I had met Ralph Johnson, the drummer of Earth, Wind & Fire, started taking lessons with him in 1980. By 1983, he was like, you're good enough to play with anybody. And he recommended me to the lead singer, Philip Bailey, the one who sang all the Earth, Wind & Fire hits, and he sang Easy Lover with Phil Collins. So that was my first big break. And then in 1985, Lenny Kravitz recommended me for the group, The New Edition. And I auditioned for them, and I got the gig, and then everything just took off from there.
Did you learn anything taking lessons?
Absolutely.
You
yeah.
did?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, and I also took lessons from a local guy here in Medford who came to my book signing at Bloomsbury Books last night. His name is Kent Klinkingbeard. And Kent, I always believed in studying privately, because here's the thing. Whatever gifts God gives you, he gives to you in the form of a seed, the seed of potential. So let's say I had this rhythmic gift that God gave me, but now I've got to develop it. I've got to water it. I've got to fertilize it. I've got to learn. I've got to grow it. So lessons are the quickest way. Studying with a master who does what you want to do is the quickest way to gain that information and to grow faster, because it doesn't have anything to do with your talent. It has to do with you developing your talent and bringing it into full blossom.
A true mentor is somebody who's been down the road that you're heading towards.
Yeah. That can lead you and tell you these. And I did the same thing with the book. Everything I've done, I'm a speaker, I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, I'm a drummer. And God gave me a kind of a spirit of Daniel. I've always desired to be excellent, not for pride, but for God reasons. Like, God gave me these abilities, I want to make them the best. So I studied with great writers and great editors to learn how to write as well as I learned how to drum.
So this might be a tough question, but you're a tough guy.
Hey, I'm Zorro.
Well, you're Zorro. I'm not. You're Zorro. I'm not. How did you protect your spiritual integrity in such an amazing world that is full of everything that would pull you away from it?
Well, I think most of it, I want to give credit to my mother. There's something about the way that she raised me, and I'm not quite sure what it was. She had a confidence about herself. She had a confidence in the Lord. And also, I was so poor growing up in Grants Pass that literally I was digging my clothes out of the Goodwill drop-off box in Ashland. That's where I would get my clothes as a kid. So money was so hard to come by that I always became a very positive kid where I was trying to build something. So the idea of destroying myself, like on the road with drugs and drinking and partying, seemed foolish to me. It wasn't even a temptation to resist it, because I was like, if I have $100, why would I spend it to drink it or snort it? I want to buy records. I want to take lessons. I want to buy my mother a house. I want to buy a car. So I was very practical and very pragmatic. And then also, at a very early age, at 18, hanging out with Lenny Kravitz's mother was a star of the Jeffersons, the television sitcom. Her name was Roxy Roker. So I got to see a lot of Hollywood very early on, and I got to see that a lot of people were famous but not happy and miserable with their lives. And I go, well, so the answer is not fame. The answer is not money, because these people have all of that. And they're all missing God. They all don't have Jesus. So very early on, that's when I wanted to become a preacher at 18, because I was like, okay, it's fun to play drums and to play music. That part's the gift from God. But to expect all of the trappings of the world to fill the empty void is foolish, because no one fills it. Right. From Julius Caesar to anybody in the world, anybody who's tried to fill their flesh with fleshly things has died miserable. So I saw that early on, and I'm like, no, I have to have the Lord in my life. And so it became easy for me, because of what I came from, the mother that I had, that those things weren't a temptation for me. They were a deterrence, you know.
That's amazing. Where'd the hat come in?
The hat came in from the bullfights.
Because when I saw you at the NRB, The first time, this past year, I see you there all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I saw you, you're
From
like,
a distance.
You were way over there. And I said, there's Zerl. I got to catch up with him.
I was a beacon of light from a distance.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? God always made me very like a peacock. Musicians and artistic people, we're creative. We don't want to look like everyone else. That's what makes you want to be on stage, right? It's part of your DNA to be different, right? So I was always that way. I was just, in high school, they wanted to kill me in Eugene because I was wearing a fur coat, and I had an afro and I had platform boots. But there was that musician inside of me, right? So, but I realized that God has used my.
You had an afro?
I had an afro, yeah.
There ain't one under there.
There ain't one here, you know, unless it's hidden under the hat. But God even uses my jewelry, the scarves, the hat to minister to people, because I can't tell you how many people I've met just because of the way I looked. I'd be on a plane and they'd be curious. They go, "What's your story?" or "What do you do?" And it leads to a conversation.
Absolutely.
And I've had people at my gym. They'll see me there while I was working on the book on my laptop and sitting in there in the gym, the coffee shop, and young people go, "Like, that's a cool bracelet. Like, what do you do? Who are you?" And then that would lead to a conversation in which I would eventually lead them to the Lord, invite them to church, minister to them in their marriage, because I was on staff at Bayside Church for 5 years. So God's given me an ability to take anything I have and use it to draw people to Him. Whether it's the drumming, whether it's the hat, whatever it is, they're all tools in which, okay, you're going to connect with me, and then I'm going to connect my heart to yours, to Jesus, because I'm an evangelist by nature.
No, obviously. All right, what do you want people to get from this book?
There's 4 things people are going to get if they read that book or listen to the audio. This book, it is heartwarming, heartbreaking, hilarious, but mostly hopeful. You will leave. I've had people of all ages read this, and they have told me, your book has inspired me so much to dream again, to go for it, to not give up, to believe God, to trust God, to work hard. It's an inspirational book, and it doesn't matter what you do or how old you are, whether you're old or young, male or female, grandma, grandpa, the kids, it will inspire you. It's one of those stories like a Rocky, Rudy, The Blind Side meets Forrest Gump. And if you like an overcoming story, that's what it is. It's a modern-day David and Goliath story about a kid who has to overcome insurmountable obstacles to live the dream, but with God's help, he's able to do it.
You have played the drums from some very notable people.
Yes, I have.
And
I've been fortunate.
Yeah, it's just been amazing. And you're still in connection with some of those. You're telling me that Valley has turned 90?
Yeah, Frankie Valli, who I played with from Frankie Valli in the 4 Seasons, he just turned 90. He's still working 75, 80 dates a year. And
at 90?
And Earth, Wind, and Fire, those guys, they're in their 70s. They're busier than they've ever been. Lenny Kravitz just turned 60. He's cranking, you know. So, I mean, I've worked with a lot of great people. They're all still around. They're all still relevant.
Are you still doing a gig?
Oh, yeah, and I play with Lincoln Brewster, and I freelance now with whoever calls me. I don't like to do really long tours anymore because I just don't like being gone that long. You know, I've been doing it for 45 years, but I still play, I still record, and I still do shorter tours, you know.
Okay. All right. The book is entitled Maria's Scarf. There's a picture of it right there. Online, all the outlets, and then, of course, the audio book of this as well, where Zorro sat down and read it himself. So that's quite a project. Give us again, this afternoon you're where?
This afternoon I am at the Ascend Conference in Ashland. Okay. It's at a church there. If you just look up Ascend Conference, you'll find it. And then tomorrow I will be at Josephine County Library at 1. Oregon Books at 2, River Valley Church at 5, preaching, and then Sunday at River Valley Church, downtown Grants Pass, their 9 and 10:30 service.
You're amazing.
You're amazing.
No, you are. You're the guy. This is really terrific. Thank you.
Well, this proves that anybody could do it. Like, if I could do this stuff, anybody watching could accomplish anything. Because I had every strike possibly that you could have against me.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. Well, listen, you're always welcome here.
Well, thank you, man.
And I'm glad you come home once in a while.
This is so fun for me to come back. I get excited when I come to Southern Oregon because there are so many memories of all my formative years are here. You know?
I need to, next go around, you and Chris need to get hooked up, Chris Smith.
Totally.
And they just started their season up on the Hill for the year.
I think they should find a donor to raise money to give every camper a copy of that book. Right. Every camper who goes to Wilderness Trails should read that book. Yeah. We need to work on that, because that would touch every kid's life, because I have a whole chapter in there about the camp.
That's
There's
wonderful.
one whole chapter in there about the whole experience at Wilderness Trails.
That's wonderful. God bless you, friend. Good to see you.
Thank you, Perry. Thanks for having me. It's been an honor to be on the Dove. And,
you're the man.
Sorry I was 5 minutes late. I'm never late.
That's all right. You know, I'm used to people being late. You know, but I just want to clarify one other thing. We'll take a break here. You were at the gym with your computer drinking coffee. What happened to working out?
I do that afterwards.
Oh, afterwards.
I wrote a lot of this book at my gym, and people would see me all the time and go, what is that guy always doing? Because I would sit at this couch and I would write, and then later, I would go work out.
Oh, okay.
But the book was written in all the places where
I thought maybe you were redefining workout.
No, well, I was working out on the typewriter, you know, getting my fingers a sweat, you know, and then working out in the gym.
All right, get the book, Maria Scarf. Thank you, buddy. We'll be right back.
Thank you, Perry. God bless.